Hello everyone. In this lesson, we will be learning how to access rows and columns of matrices. So by the end of this lesson, you will learn how to extract elements or sub-matrices from a matrix. So if you want to access rows and columns of a matrix, you would specify the name of the matrix followed by the square bracket, and you provide two numbers separated by comma. The first number represents the row and the second number represents the column. This means that you are extracting the element that is found in the very row and column which you specify within the square bracket. So for example, if you specify the name of the matrix followed by the square bracket and you put in 1, 1, this means you are extracting the value or item in the first row and first column of the matrix. Again, if you specify the very first value 1, and nothing for the column, it means you are extracting the values in the first row and all columns. The same thing also if you specify the column number, in this case, which is 1, but you specify nothing for the rows, then it means you are extracting the values in all rows and first column. So let's go to R and have a go at these concepts. Now, let's create a matrix called A. So we write the matrix function and let's specify the data argument and we supply a vector of values. So let's give it some arbitrary set of numbers. So we have like 3, 9, -1, 10, 45, 89, 12, 5, 7. So we have 9 numbers. So we are creating 3 by 3 matrix. So the number of rows, we set it to 3, and the number of columns, we also set it to 3. So let's go ahead and execute this code and print the matrix to the console. So we do have this matrix. Now you would observe that the square bracket with the 1 comma in here simply represents the very first row. So you would see that there is no number after the comma, and that tells you all columns. So basically, square bracket 1 comma means first row, then we have the second row, then the third row. Then over here too, we have the columns. We do not specify any number before the comma, but a number after the comma. So we are simply working with the columns. So we have the first column, and then the second column, and the third column. So let's go ahead and begin to extract elements from within this very matrix. So let me clear the console, print the matrix again, and now we specify the name of the matrix followed by the square bracket, and we begin to put in the values for the rows and columns for whose elements we want to extract from the matrix. So in this case, if I should follow the way the row names and the column names are provided in this matrix, then I can say 1 comma and do not specify anything after the comma. That means we are simply extracting the very first row. So if I go ahead and execute this, we see that the 3, 10, and 12 have been returned. Again, if I wanted to extract the second row, I would proceed and write the name of the matrix followed by the square bracket 2 comma and nothing in there. And if you should execute, you end up getting the second row. So we can do the same thing for the third row and execute, we will get the third row. If you also want to call out the first column, second column, third column separately, you can also do so by writing the name of the matrix. Then I would specify nothing for the row, but comma, and specify the column. So that means we are extracting the very first column, which is 3, 9, -1, and that's exactly what we have here, 3, 9, -1. So if I wanted to extract the second column, then I would say comma 2 in the square bracket, and we get the same set of values, 10, 45, 89, and that is what we have here. So what about extracting the third column? It's just simply comma 3, execute, and we get the third column. Okay, now let's say we wanted to call out the number 3. We observe that this 3 is found in the first row and that of the first column. So in that case, you would write the name of the matrix, which is A, followed by the square bracket, and then specify the row, which is 1 comma, and specify the column, which is also 1. So that means we're extracting the element in the first row and the first column, and if you execute, you end up getting the value of 3. Again, let's say you wanted to extract the number 12. That is also found in the very first row and the third column. So how do we do this? We would say A matrix, square bracket. Now it is found in the first row, so 1, comma, and then what about the column, which is 3? So we have 3. And if you should execute, we get the value 12. If you wanted to extract -1, that is found in the third row and the first column. So all you have to do is specify the name of the matrix, then 3, 1, which means we're extracting the element in the third row and the first column. Just simply execute, we get -1. Again, let's say you wanted to extract the numbers 3 and 9. Now you would observe that these 3 and 9 are found in the first to second rows and the first column. So how do we do this? You specify the name of the matrix, and then we will have a comma like this. Now before the comma, we specify the rows. Over here, because we are extracting 3 and 9 and they are found in the first and second rows, I will simply go ahead and say 1, 2, 2. Remember, we use the colon symbol to specify a sequence. So all I'm saying, let us extract the first 2 second rows. Then for the column, I will specify 1. So if I should execute, we end up getting 3, 9, just as we have here, 3, 9. And then again, if I wanted to extract 3, 9, -1, then it's very simple. You will just specify the name of the matrix, and you can say 1, 2, 3, 1. That means first to third rows and the first column. If you execute, you get a 3, 9, -1. So another thing we can do, let's clear the console and print the matrix A again. Another thing we can do is to extract, for example, 3 and -1. And you observe that it is found in the first row, third row, and the very first column. So this is getting more complicated. So let me show you how we actually do this. So we specify the name of the matrix again, followed by the square bracket. Then let me put in my comma. Before the comma, I need to specify the rows. So because we are extracting 3 and -1, which are found in the first and third rows, if you go ahead and write 1, 2, 3, that is actually going to extract the first to third columns, which is going to be all of these numbers all together. But we need only 3 and -1. So we need only first row and third row. So how do we do that? We just simply need to separate this 1, 3 with a comma. But don't confuse it with the major comma separating the rows and the columns. So what do? We simply need to combine these numbers. So in that case, you just have to have the C function and just put in 1, 3. This way, you are actually combining the first row and the third row together. Then let's go ahead and specify the column, which is just simply 1. And if we should execute, we end up getting the 3 and the -1 that we are looking for. Another extraction we can do is, let's say we wanted to call out these numbers, 3, 10, 9, 45, 3, 10, 9, 45. So these 4 numbers are found in the first to second rows and the first, second columns. So how do we do this? The A matrix followed by the square bracket. Let's have our comma. Before the comma, we now specify the rows that we are looking for. So first to second row. So I would say 1, 2. And then for the columns, we have first column and second column. So that is also again 1, 2. So we are extracting the elements in the first to second rows and the first to second columns. And when we execute, we end up getting a sub-matrix containing these 4 numbers that we are extracting from our major matrix. Let's say we wanted to extract 3, 10, 12, and then -1, 89, 7. So 3, 10, 12, -1, 89, 7. You would observe they are found in the first and third rows, but for all columns. So we can actually do it in 2 ways. The very first one is, let's specify the name of the matrix. Let's have our comma. Before the comma, we need the first and third rows. So I would combine 1, 3, and I can choose not to specify anything for the columns. And if I should execute, I would end up getting the 3, 10, 12, -1, 89, 7 that we are looking for. Another way we can do this is simply by specifying the columns if you want. So because we need it for all the columns, then I can go ahead and also specify 1, 3, and that means we are extracting the elements in the first and third rows and then first to third columns. And if you should execute, you end up getting the same result. Again, let's say we are extracting 3, 10, negative 189. 3, 10, negative 189. So they are also found in the first and third rows by the first and second columns. So we would go ahead and write the name of the matrix. Then let's have our comma. Before the comma, I need the 3, 10, negative 189. So they are found in the first and third row. So we need to combine them, 1, 3. But then after this comma, we now specify the columns. And the columns would be 1 to 2. So first to second columns. And when we do that, we end up getting our sub-matrix that we have extracted from the major matrix. Let's do one more thing and bring this lesson to a close. Let's say you wanted to extract the numbers 9 and 5. And you'd realize that that is found in the second row only, but in the first and third columns. So 9, 5. So we would go ahead and say A square bracket. We have our comma. Then before the comma, we will just simply specify the rows. And because there is only one row for these two numbers we are extracting, that is the second row, we put the number 2. But for the columns, we have 1 and 3. So I would go ahead and say, let's combine 1, 3 for the columns. And if you should execute, we end up getting the 9, 5. So this is how you would go about extracting values or elements from within a matrix.